Around a year ago, I was searching Craigslist of all places for parts out of pure curiosity. There was nothing special really, and I just wanted to see if it was a good idea to shop on this website considering the price of all PC parts had gone up quite a bit. Because maybe you could get a better deal getting something used here than on eBay, let's just say. And right as I was about to give up, I ran into this fella. An old school PC case for just $5. And as always, there is a catch. So let's see if I can turn this case from nothing into something. While it was an hour out in the big city, I had to drive out there anyways to begin with for some work that I needed to do. Life stuff. So it worked out in my favor to begin with. I picked it up from a guy who had a garage full of Apple servers from the late 2000s, which I didn't even know existed in the first place. He had a bunch of crazy retro stuff that I wish I could have recorded, but I think the guy was nice enough already for giving me such a good deal on this PC case. But anyways, in the end, everything worked out. I got the case and got home in one piece. And while this case is already a mess, it was an even bigger mess before when I was transporting it. Most of the cobwebs came off, but it is very, very dirty still. And while that is easy to clean in theory, just time consuming. The front panel, which should match the whole beige case color, is yellowing pretty badly. But I do have a solution for this. Before we go into that though, let's look at what the case actually has. To start out, both side panels are removable, which is great for some light cable management. I wish I knew the manufacturer or the date that this was made because this wasn't common practice for cases that looked similar to this one. On top of that, we have plenty of hard drive bays and a lot of front drive bays as well. Plenty of customization for this PC it seems. More importantly though, the front panel can be easily pulled off. It is just held on by some simple clips. How nice, unlike the other PCs that I have worked on in the past. The USBs and main I/O wiring, however, is filtered through one hole that was punched out in the front, which bunches up the cable since very little clearance is given. It is a tad annoying to put back together, I imagine, if done repeatedly. I mean, I know airflow is already going to be an issue since you only get it from the bottom of the front panel and the little vents on the sides. But anyways, something more interesting that I discovered was the fact the top panel of the case was detachable, only held in by a screw on the side and back. It allows us to clean it much more easily. It also makes for a very nice case despite its age since we don't have to drop in our parts, rather we can put them in without worrying about bumping into the top of the case, or where the power supply would be with all that clearance. This may seem like a minuscule thing, but for someone who works with PCs often, it makes me wish more cases did things similar to this one. Modularity is king. After all, modular power supplies are always preferred regardless of the type of builds you have. But I am getting way off track. Let's talk about how we are going to clean up the parts of this PC case. You can unyellow many electronics from the 2000s, 90s, or beyond in many different ways. However, I have time and I want to do this as nicely as possible, so I decided to go down the hydrogen peroxide direction. That is why I went on ahead and gathered a bunch of bottles of the stuff in an old clear container to soak the front panel in, while it bathes in the sun for the next few days. I could have used bleach for this whole process, but then that would degrade the plastic. And I'd rather take my time anyway since the case will need a lot of detailing in every nook and cranny it has. A few tips if you do this yourself, by the way. You will need to use a certain amount of hydrogen peroxide to completely submerge your part, or parts, if you want to de-yellow it correctly. I didn't have enough hydrogen peroxide and I had to get more, which I kind of expected to happen here. Luckily, a bottle is like $1 of this stuff, so I bought 6 more, which was a gallon and a half worth. It is also important to mention that plastics do float, so you're going to want to weigh down the plastics in some sort of way. Obviously, you will want to do it while not touching any important beige spots so that it can unstain itself correctly. I used some zip ties and baggies full of metal that were watertight, and they did the trick. If you can't do that, find some stainless steel bolts or something that you don't care about that may or may not rust. Last thing I need to note though, don't be dumb like me. Wear protective gear like gloves and goggles if you can get some. I ended up getting light chemical burns because I kept dipping my hands in the spicy soda water, which dried out my hands and made my fingernails want to fall off. I am serious, and actually slowed down my ability to do anything for the next 2 days while working on this PC. But anywho, I slowly cleaned the side panels and other small parts of the PC with isopropyl alcohol, cotton swabs, and a rag. It was very tedious since I had to go back and use more isopropyl alcohol after it broke up the dirt or scum that had been caked up over the years of this PC's life. But through the process, I did find some interesting information. A timestamp for when the case was manufactured. February 21st, 2005. Interesting. It isn't as old as first presumed, which is kind of a good thing since if it was an early ATX model, it may have issues with getting a motherboard screwed down in the case. The only problem is 2005 and beige PC case doesn't help us figure out who made it. The only other info I could find on the case was on the back of the front panel, which wasn't any more help either. I looked up the part numbers / names and I still couldn't find anything, so once again, I call on to you guys. If you know who made this or what the name of the case is, please let me know in the comments below. I would like to have some history on it if I decide to make another video using this guy. Anyways, back to the PC case. The hydrogen peroxide bath did its job. It probably could have sat in the bath for another 12 hours or something, but I think it is good enough. So after carefully pulling out the front panel and cleaning it off, I slowly put it back together. Once done, I rebuilt the entire case and I felt like it looked hollow. I mean, obviously it has no components in it, and there is a whole bay that you can see into at the top. But despite it being clean and brand new looking now, it just wasn't good enough in my eyes. It needed some pizzazz or something. So I went on ahead and got a few parts to make it worth way more and turn it into a more usable case for any build. For starters, I knew it needed some front USB stuff with a headphone jack and whatnot, so I got this 3.5-inch hub on eBay. It is relatively nice and cheap for a total of around 14 bucks. But obviously it is only USB 2.0 and not 3.0. Why not get it with 3.0? Well, because it is already difficult getting it with a beige color scheme. So this will do. I also wanted it to go into the 5.25-inch bay that was empty, so I got an adapter that will hold that in place and work with the whole front panel. Now that looks a lot better. And the front USB, it's much more reachable for this PC if it were at the ground or at our feet, per se. Nice. But I want it to be a bit better. So I'm going to give it a retro feel by adding a 3.5-inch floppy drive as well. I got this completely new at a thrift store for $6.99. A steal for something that has never been used, I assume. It is a little troubling to mount, but I managed to get it in. I wanted to do one last thing for this case too. I wanted to add a DVD drive as well. Finding a beige one would prove to be difficult and expensive, however. In the end, I found something that was a white beige for around $20 and it should be fine. After screwing in everything I got to see how the final product looked, I felt conflicted. My brand new floppy disk has some yellowing, and the off-coloring from the DVD drive feels like an itch that I can't get rid of. The PC case is in a better state than it was before, but I feel like it isn't what I was hoping it would turn into. But after examining it for a few hours, I slowly came to like the PC case more than I would ever think I could. I forgot the purpose of my channel and the style of PC cases that I like, or just any computer really. Something that is unique, that the user themselves created. Something that isn't the flashiest, but gets the job done. Something that belongs to the PC user and no one else because they created it. And I think this case might just fit that criteria. So, what do you guys think? Did I turn this retro case into a $100 one? Did I make it worth more than that? Did I ruin it to some degree? Are there things that could be improved on? And most importantly, what should this PC case house? A retro build? A sleeper? Or something odd and completely different in itself? Let me know in the comments below. I had a bunch of fun with this case and its parts, even if I did hurt myself in the process. And if you are a true fan, go ahead and join the Discord. I just made it and I would appreciate if you guys stopped by and said hi at least. If you like videos like this one, be sure to stick around, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Like the video if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching.